All right. I did it! Fire Emblem Three Houses. Finally conquered. This game took a lot longer than maybe it needed to be, but I had a lot of fun along the way. This is a really, really good game. And so Fire Emblem Three Houses conquered. And what a game it is, actually. You know, I'm a fan of the Fire Emblem franchise, and I haven't beaten many of the recent ones, but I'm definitely happy to say that I've beaten this one, because it's not often I beat games on the hardest difficulty, but you know, this was the bomb diggity. So my thoughts on the game, overall thoughts. I did a Blue Line playthrough. I played on hard difficulty under classic mode and did the Iron Man challenge. I never had to downgrade to Bronze Man because I didn't encounter any bugs. But the Iron Man challenge, if nobody knows, is basically you go through the game without reloading any missions, and essentially no saves coming. You live with the decisions that you make. And that's what I did. And I'm actually quite impressed with myself for following through with that to the bitter end. I even went as far as not using the go back in time mechanic as well, which is kind of sad because, you know, I don't have to do anymore. But like I said before, I don't think to do would have been as really useful at the end there. There was so much magic damage. But for other overall thoughts, as I said, I actually really like this game. It's a pretty good Fire Emblem game. I don't know if it's the best. I haven't played too many Fire Emblem games, but just playing this story arc alone, there is so much content here. I am desperately curious to know what goes on during the Black Eagles, Edelgard's crew. I really want to know how that plays out. I'm gonna have to watch a YouTube video of all the cutscenes or something like that, because that path seems like it would be insane. Let me see. For story, was it satisfying? I'm gonna say it was satisfying, yes, but I don't remember killing some of the important mage guys. I'm guessing they die in some of the other paths. Maybe Edelgard kills them or something like that. But I didn't see them. I was expecting to have to fight them, and I didn't have to. So a little kernel left unfinished there. None of our characters even spoke of them, so it's kind of weird. Did it feel complete? Aside from that little thing, I will say it felt complete. It was basically a start to finish. I kind of wish we got to rescue Rhea there at the end and talk to her and things like that, so that was a little disappointing, but it was complete. How was the pacing? I'm gonna say the pacing was kind of awful. Mostly just because it has to do with the monastery. Just kind of it doesn't really work that well with the pacing. There's going to be something I talk about fairly soon, but it just kind of gets in the way a little bit, I guess. Thoughts on the story. Some awkward this is what I was going to talk about. Some awkward interactions with the month system. At the beginning of the month, Rhea would say, "Bandits are terrorizing the towns," and so go stop them. And then several weeks later, we go kill them. You know, it's one of those gamifying things where you kind of have to go through an entire month before you can do a mission. And some of these missions are really important missions. And for whatever reason, we're just waiting 30 days before we go do them. It's kind of strange. Let me see. I love the possibilities the game has thrusted on me at the end of once the end of part 1 rolls around. I really want to go through the Black Eagle storyline to see what happens within the gameplay and the battles. I touched on this already. It's just Cool. Oh yeah, Thales. Is Arundel no. No. Oh, Jarit's Black Knight? Oh yeah, we never really found out if he was actually the Black Knight or not. Is part 1 relatively dull to part 2? I was thinking about this because the game really gets off the ground in part 2. But once you get to part 2, then I start thinking about part 1 and I was like, well, did anything really happen in part 1? You know, was it just kind of shenanigans? And it kind of did feel like shenanigans. Just like nothing really important seemed to happen. It was part 2 and the transition to part 2 that was, I guess, big. But at the same time, part 1 was a lot of character building and world building and things like that. Although I think part 2 did more world building. I think part 1, in hindsight, after experiencing part 2 or even getting to part 2, is the weaker portion of the game, I suppose I would say. For characters, Dimitri left his bloodlust behind pretty quickly. I wish he got tempted more. His lifelong mission was to achieve revenge. When we finally convinced Dimitri to relax, he just relaxed, and he didn't go crazy anymore. And I kind of wish, maybe at the end there, once he saw Edelgard, like, he just lost control or something like that. I wish they tugged on that string, I suppose, more. Let's see. Gameplay mechanics and design. What gameplay elements stand out? I'm uncertain if the monastery mechanics were a good fit. It's a fun initial experience to try to figure out all the things you can do and how to spend time as time goes on. But those options dwindled for me. The most valuable use of my time was getting experience and building towards skill ups. And even then, skill ups just became, well, I have an A+ right now. I think that's pretty satisfactory for getting through things. And it was. We pushed through to some S's and things like that, but it just started losing a lot of impact towards the end. It just started losing impact, period. The more time you spent with the game. The monastery doesn't feel like it complements the dead time in between fights. It feels like it just gets in the way. It's optional in the sense that you can skip it, however, it's foolish to do so. You should be doing the monastery every week. There's no reason not to, honestly. There's a bunch of things that improve your characters, and if you're not doing that, then you're just making your characters weaker, essentially. So, on the flip side, though, a Fire Emblem game to me is definitely about the battles. And the monastery, I feel it just kind of sits there in between each battle. And at least for me, like, the monastery was fun at first, but as time rolled on, I was like, I just want to get to the next battle, like, let me fight some suckers, throw me into some crazy situations. The monastery just, it didn't give me what I wanted out of it, I suppose. Let's see here. When characters die, they don't die. Yeah. At least people outside of your own house. I think I can, at least for my playthrough, confirm that it was just people outside of my house that didn't die. Dedue actually died. He was gone. I thought that was weird. I think they should have died. The house leaders should have run up on you and be like, you killed my dude, like, you're dead to me, or something like that. Like, that would have made you feel so bad, but so good. You know, like, take that, sucker. I killed you, sucker. Let's see. The exams for characters to learn new classes is obnoxious. Can only be done at the certifications menu, but I do appreciate the percentage chance to succeed, even if it didn't favor me much. Yeah, I got bodied with those, man. Like, taking those 67% and whatnot, the odds were not in my favor for those exams, but they were in my favor for crits. I got some sick, nasty crits with a lot of people. I also got crit. Hey, digital hearts, let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Let's see. The next point. The monastery was a fantastic experiment on the formula to allow for some very cool additions. A large, in all caps, large, cast of characters with lots of dialogue. This was absolutely fantastic. A fully voice-acted cast of characters is amazing in of itself, but how many characters there actually are and how many lines of dialogue, like, it's pretty insane how amazing that particular edition was. A great draw and twist on the story with the houses in part 2. I really like how the game is all about the monastery at first, and then it kind of throws you for a loop in part 2, and you know, it's still about the monastery, but then it's more about war instead of, you know, just like, oh, you know, I have a mission for you, go kill some bandits, which we killed a lot of bandits. Fun ideas like monthly tournaments and fishing. I wasn't like, I didn't really like the fishing all too much. I felt like it didn't really do all that much. But it was a cool idea to be able to fish in a Fire Emblem game. And the tournaments were just a fantastic idea. Like, hey, let's see if your sword user can actually win this tournament. And if you do, you know, you get a semi-decent / useful item / equipment / whatever. Let's see. Shrine upgrading. This was really cool as well. I didn't get to upgrade them all. I don't even know if you can upgrade them all, but that was pretty cool. You know, getting options to do things is always fun, and the monastery gave you plenty of options to do things, even though those options dwindled in excitement and potentially usefulness, and quite possibly just you know, the willingness to do them. You still had the option to do that, and you know, you got to praise that. It was great. Paralogs were fantastic. I really like that these missions that you could do with all these characters to do all kinds of interesting things within like their own territories, and kind of like do these little stories with them. It was really nice, and you got some really nice rewards from them as well. Giving us options to choose, even though sometimes it could be painful. I already touched on this, but the choice is very important in video games. That this is going to sound redundant, but choice is very important in video games where they give you choices. There's a lot of games out there that give you choices, but they don't matter. And I really like games that give you choices that matter. And a Fire Emblem game is the perfect game to do that. You know, your characters will die forever. So why not extend those choices into other aspects of the game, like monasteries and things like that, where once you use this point, you ain't getting this point back until you wrap around to the next week. And being able to choose whether you want to feed your students or put them all in tournaments or train with instructors, it's cool, you know? I like it. Let's see, moving on from the monastery and the things that I liked and disliked about it. I miss recruiting the traditional way. The new way is building up certain skills or stats and then asking people to join you. It can only be done once a week. Whereas the old way was finding people on the battlefield and having characters talk to them. They could be enemies, allies, or guest characters. It made fights more challenging than they needed to be, but it felt very core to the Fire Emblem way at the time. I'm okay with the way that they did recruiting in this game, but I also wish there was the old school way of recruiting as well. It would have been really, really nice to meet, let's just say Linthart, or whatever his name is, in one of those battles. And, you know, I put some time into him. You know, we were homies. It would have been nice if I could walk up to him as Byleth and be like, look, we don't want to kill you, man. You know, just don't fight us. Like, don't you see that this is wrong? And we convince him, and he's like, you know what, man, you're right. I gotta stand up to this. Everything they're doing is wrong. And they join our squad or something like that. Or like the people that we protect, you know, it was, I guess I was hoping for a mixture of them, and at least from my experience, I did not see any of that. I'm not 100% sure if it's in the game or not, but in my playthrough, it wasn't, from what I could see. I could have missed something. Who knows? Let's see. Lack of advantageous maps with interesting objectives. Yeah, for the most part, I would definitely say the most interesting objective map was when Rhea needed protection. It was a Fog of War map, and we surrounded her in a circle. It was actually the map that I lost Caspar in it, interestingly enough. That was probably the most interesting objective map, because, you know, like, okay, we just got to protect her for like 10 turns or whatever, but we can just go out and start killing people too, you know. Fog of War. And that was awesome. But I know the game is about, you know, being challenging and throwing you against the odds, but it would have been really nice to have like a three square wide corridor that just led into this big castle or whatever, and we're inside, and the enemy has to funnel in, and they've got all these reinforcements and big monsters and ranged mages, and like we just gotta hold the line. And, you know, if there's a ranged mage that comes out with a meteor or something like that, like, oh man, you know, like we gotta take a chance and go out there and kill him. You know, we never, even when we should have been on the advantageous side, we were never on the advantageous side. It was always, we were always at a disadvantage somehow. And you know, it would be nice to just have some variation, I suppose. I also want to add here that I just thought of, and there's a lot of moments where we sieged castles and things like that, but we never actually got to siege any castles. We always went into battle after we had broken the gates, and I feel like sieging a castle and breaking into the gates is the hardest part, you know? Like, you gotta break down the door. That's freaking difficult, man. So would have been nice to, you know, attack the door and then go into part 2 of the mission, where we got to attack the inside of the castle or inside of the fort or whatever. For combat, new recruits suck. I think it's always been this way, but they are just so weak. It got to the point where they were just wasting my time in combat, so I removed them entirely and added them exclusively as adjutants. I don't know what happened, but even at the end of the game, where Cyril was like level 32 or something like that, his stats were just so bad. I mean, maybe I needed to change his class or something like that, or I just don't know. But the new recruits, They're just not good. Adjutants are awesome. A decent compromise to Awakening's pairing up mechanic. I wish the adjutant count scaled so that you could have more early on, though. They give you one, like mid-game-ish, and they keep you at one for a really long time. I wish you got one a little bit earlier, and that would encourage you to go out and start recruiting other people, like really early on. And then they give you two at that midpoint, and then three, a little bit later, much later after that. It would have changed up the dynamics a little bit, and it would have at least helped me out when I wanted to actually use people that I couldn't really use. Let me see. Seeing what enemies will attack next turn is awesome. All caps awesome. It is freaking amazing. They didn't always follow through with those attacks, and that's totally fine. But having a really good idea where someone's going to attack allows you to inform your decisions more, and actually it makes it more strategic, even though, it probably shouldn't be that way. But I really appreciated this change. I don't know if it's exclusive to Three Houses or if it was in Awakening or any previous ones, but I don't remember in previous Fire Emblem games, and I hope they keep it for future ones. It's a really nice thing to plan around. The large monster mechanics are obnoxious and overused. I was looking for crazy bosses. Instead, they were just big pools of HP that took up lots of space. When we fought our first one, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of crazy, like I gotta go through this monster. He's got these shields and things like that, and I gotta break them. If I break them all, I get a bonus. By the way, those bonuses were always really underwhelming. And then once I break them, like, they take massive damage, but they regen their shields, and like they do these AoE attacks, and these always came off as crazy bosses to me, but they weren't crazy bosses to me. It was just that first one, and then after that, they started using them as like normal enemies, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, Edelgard these suckers, come on. It was disappointing, I guess. I wanted more bosses out of them. Instead, I got just additional enemy types, most of which were pretty obnoxious. And then I still want to say that final boss was some bullcrap, but Dimitri pulled through, so gotta hand it to him. Dedu would have been able to body that too. So for dungeons, I don't really have any favorite dungeons. I guess that Fog of War one where you got to protect Rhea was really nice, so I appreciate that one a lot. For annoying ones, the first forest map where I got Lawrence killed on accident, that map is obnoxious. It's just the way the forests are laid out and the way the enemies are laid out, I don't like that map at all. Let me see. Cardinal Sins. This one was an interesting one for me, because I don't know how to cardinal sin this. I have here removing key party member without sufficient replacement. And it's just kind of weird, because like, do I sin this game for that? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to be put in situations where you can only use like 7 units, and then you got to take out somebody. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that one up in the air. I also have the Silent Protagonist. This is a new cardinal sin of 2020 for non-Ys games, because, well, yeah. But I don't like the Silent Protagonist. It's gotten to the point where I'm just so sick and tired of characters not saying anything. The main character just always gets to the point where it's like, if you just said something, you would be able to move these things forward. I don't buy into the whole like I feel closer to my character. I feel as if I'm talking for that character. That just doesn't work on me. So it might just be a personal thing. Apparently, some people out there like it. I just don't. Yeah. So that's a new cardinal sin of 2020. For miscellaneous, we go into the sound and music. I was trying to listen to some of the music tracks like before the stream and whatnot, because the way my sound setup is I don't get the best music listening to, I suppose, especially when a lot of things are going on. But I got to listen to some of the tracks, and I'd definitely say that I enjoyed what I heard. And there's a lot of music in this game too. For voice acting, wonderful voice acting. Main story is fully voice acted. Side quests are fully voiced. I think I think it's just easier to say the entire game is fully voiced, excluding some little things, which is pretty great. There's even some main character voice lines that are voice acted. You know, it's crazy. I love it when games voice act because I don't have to read, and reading is hard. So. For the graphics, I really like the visuals of this game. They did a really good job. You can zoom in on your units and see them up close, and you can zoom out a little bit, see their battalions and things like that. All the animations are pretty spot on, except for walking animations. Those ones are incredibly awkward. The look of this game just looks really, really good, and the feel of the game as you're going throughout and whatnot, they just did a fantastic job. So props on the graphics, the visual. Replay value, this game's got some replay value. Let me tell you, man. Like, you could play this game 3 times, and I hear maybe, possibly, they're adding in more routes to this game too. You know, so like you could play this game 4 times, 5 times maybe. You know, this is insanity. This game, I mean, even I'm tempted to play this game again under the Black Eagles. You know, I don't know how they make the Golden Deer interesting. I don't know what happens over there, but the Black Eagles got some stuff happening. And I gotta know. So crazy amount of replay value on this one. Or at least, times 2 at least. 3 times total you could play this game and experience completely new things. For other, I had 4 character deaths. Lawrence, Caspar, Gilbert, and Dedu. And I'm really just sad about the last one. So, to cap it off, if the developer is watching, this was a really good Fire Emblem game. I think the monastery was a really nice addition. I think what would have made this game even better for me personally is once the monastery was essentially destroyed, I think it should have went away, and then we go to war, and basically what we have right then and there is what we have. Maybe you can like do some camp sessions or something like that, mini monastery things where you can boost up skills, preparing for the war or what have you. But the monastery, if it went away at part 2, that would have improved my enjoyment quite a bit, because things change. It's war now. You got to go do some things. You got to go kill some people. You got to make sacrifices. So that would have been great, especially because I don't think it makes much sense narratively for them to basically conquer the monastery and then just leave, especially how much of a strategic location it is. They definitely should have occupied that. Maybe we go take it back and then we get our monastery stuff back. That would have been cool. But overall, like, this game is absolutely fantastic. I think it sets the stage for great Fire Emblem games in the future. I mean, this game is basically potentially up to currently, as far as I know, 3 Fire Emblem games, which is crazy in of itself. It's wonderful how much content is in this game and how much value you can actually get from it if you want to experience that. So, mad props to the developers and everybody that worked on this game. Y'all brought the ruckus on this one. So that's where I'm going to end it here for today. Nice 4-hour stream. I'll be back Monday. Yeah, today's Friday. Monday, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific to play something else. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you Monday. Peace. Before I go, let's just make sure there's no end credit scenes. Ooh, okay. Okay. No end credit scenes. All right. I'm out of here. Peace.